Hello everyone, my name is Lakshmi Priya. In the last class we have dealt with the right to freedom, that is article 19 to 22, right? In today's session we'll deal with right against exploitation, that is article 23 and 24, and also right to freedom of religion. Okay, that is article 25, 26, 27 and 28. Okay, so in today's session we'll deal with right against exploitation and right to freedom of religion. First, right against exploitation. There are two articles under this right, article 23 and article 24. Article 23 includes human trafficking and forced labor. Okay, article 23 talks about human trafficking and forced labor, whereas article 24 talks about child labor. Okay, now let us see them in detail. First, prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Article 23 prohibits traffic in human beings, beggar and other similar forms of forced labor. Okay, article 23 prohibits traffic in human beings, beggar, that is forced labor, and other similar forms of forced labor. Any contravention of this provision shall be an offence punishable in accordance with law. Okay, anything that is against this provision shall be an offence, and this is punishable in accordance with law. This right is available to both citizens as well as non-citizens, that is foreigners. Next, it protects the individual not only against state but also against private persons. Okay, it protects the individuals against both state as well as private person. Okay, next. The expression traffic in human beings include. Okay, what is traffic in human beings? Let us see. Selling and buying of men, women and children like goods. Okay, selling and buying of men, women and children like goods. Next, immoral traffic in women and children including prostitution. Okay, immoral traffic in women and children including prostitution. Next, devadasis. Devadasis are nothing but unmarried women. They have to sacrifice their whole life in a temple doing prayers without marriage. Okay, next is slavery. All this include in the traffic in human being. Next, to punish these acts, the Parliament has made the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956. Okay, to punish these acts, Parliament has made the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956. Next, the term beggar means compulsory work without remuneration. Okay, that means persons are made to do work without giving them any money. Next, the term forced labor means compelling a person to work against his will. Okay, forced labor means persons are made to do work though they doesn't like to do it. Okay, compelling a person to do work against his will. Though he doesn't like the work, still he is made to do that work. Next, the word force includes not only physical or legal force but also the force arising from the compulsion of economic circumstances. That is working for less than the minimum wage. Okay. Here the word force includes not only the physical or legal force but also the compulsion of economic circumstances. That is working for less than the minimum wage. Next, the Bonded Labor System Act of 1976, the Minimum Wages Act of 1948, the Contract Labor Act of 1970, and the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976. All these were made to protect the persons against this forced labor. Okay, these acts were made by Parliament under Article 23. Okay. Next. Article 23 also provides for an exception to this provision. Let us see what is that. It permits the state to impose the compulsory service for the public purposes, for example, military service or social service for which he is not bound to pay. See, there is an exception for this Article 23, that is, state can impose the compulsory services like military services or social service, etc., for which state shall not bound to pay. He may not give the money and make them to work under military services or social services. This is an exception. Okay, next. However, in imposing such service, the state is not permitted to make any discrimination on grounds only of religion, race, caste, or class. So, state is not allowed to discriminate on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, or class while permitting these services. Okay. Next. Article 24. Prohibition of employment of children in factories, etc. Article 24 prohibits the employment of children below the age of 14 years in any factory, mine, or other hazardous activities like construction of work or railways. Okay, Article 24 prohibits the employment of children below the age of 14 years in any factories, mines, or other hazardous activities like construction work, railways, etc. But it does not prohibit their employment in any harmless or innocent work. That means children are employed to do work which is harmless to them. So to overcome this, the Child Labour Prohibition Regulation Act of 1986 was included. Next. In addition, the Employment of Children Act 1938, the Factories Act of 1948, Mines Act of 1952, Merchant Shipping Act of 1958, Plantation Labour Act of 1951, Motor Transport Workers Act of 1951, Apprentices Act of 1961, Beedi and Cigar Workers Act of 1966, and other similar acts prohibit the employment of children below certain age. Okay, all these acts were included by the Parliament to protect the children against hazardous works. Next, the Commissions for Protect of Child Rights Act 2005 was enacted to provide for the establishment of National Commission and State Commission for Protection of Children, for protection of child rights and children's court for providing speedy trial of offences against children or of violation of child rights. Okay, the Commission for Protection of Child Rights Act of 2005. This was enacted to provide for the establishment of National Commission under Centre and State Commission under the state for providing the speedy trial if there is any offence against the children, to provide the speedy trial on it. National Commission and State Commission were established by the Commissions for Protection of Child Rights Act of 2005. Okay, next. In 2006, the government banned the employment of children as domestic servants or workers in business establishments like hotels, dabas, restaurants, shops, factories, resorts, spas, tea shops, and so on. Okay, in 2006, government banned the employment of children as domestic services in all these places. Okay. Next, it warned that anyone employing children below 14 years of age would be liable for the prosecution and penal action. Okay, employing the children below 18 years, whoever are responsible for employing the children below 18 years, penal action will be taken on them. Penal action would be taken on them. Okay. Next, the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Amendment Act of 2016 amended the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986. It renamed the principal act as Child and Adolescent Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986. Okay, the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986 was renamed as the Child and Adolescent Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986 by the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Amendment Act of 2016. Okay, this act renamed the previous act as Child and Adolescent Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986. Okay. Next we'll see right to freedom of religion. Right to freedom of religion consists of Article 25, 26, 27 and 28. Now let us see them one by one. First, freedom of concise and free profession, practice and propagation of religion. See, Article 25 says that all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience, the right to freely profess, practice and propagate religion. Now we'll see them one by one. What is freedom of conscience? Freedom of conscience is nothing but the inner feeling. Okay. The inner feeling of a person to mold his relation with God. Okay. Relation with God or creature. The inner freedom of an individual to mold his relation with God or creature in whatever way he desires. Okay, freedom of conscience is nothing but the inner feeling of an individual to mold his relation with God or creatures in whatever way he desires. Next, right to profess. What is right to profess? See, declaring one's religious beliefs openly and freely. Okay, right to profess means declaring one's religious beliefs openly and freely. That is called right to profess. Next, right to practice. Right to practice is nothing but performing religious worships, rituals. Okay, performing religious worships, rituals, ceremonies and exhibition of beliefs and ideas. All this comes under right to practice. Next, right to propagate. Right to propagate is nothing but transmission of one's religious beliefs to others. Okay, right to propagate is nothing but transmission of one's religious beliefs to others. But this does not include the right to convert another person to one's own religion. Okay, if that is the case, it becomes forcible conversion, right? which is against the freedom of conscience. Okay, right to propagate is only transmission of one's religious belief to others. Right? Next. Article 25 covers not only the religious beliefs but also the religious practices. Moreover, these rights are available to all citizens as well as non-citizens. Okay, Article 25 covers religious beliefs as well as religious practices, and these are available to citizens as well as foreigners. These rights are subject to public order, morality, health, and other provisions related to fundamental rights. Okay, there are reasonable restrictions on 3 grounds, that is public order, morality, health. Okay, further, the state is permitted to regulate or restrict any economic, financial, political, or other secular activity associated with religious practice. Okay, state is permitted to regulate or restrict any economic, financial, political, or other secular activity associated with religious practice. Next, it provides for the social welfare and reform or through open Hindu religious institutions of a public character to all classes and sections of Hindus. Again, state is permitted to provide for social welfare and reform or through open Hindu religious institutions to public character to all classes and sections of Hindus. Okay, next. Freedom to manage religious affairs. Article 26. Every religious denomination or any of its section shall have the following rights. Religious denomination is nothing but the group of individuals, community. Okay, they shall have the following rights. What are they? Right to establish and maintain institutions for religious and charitable purposes. Right to manage its own affairs in matters of religion. Right to own and acquire movable and immovable property. Right to administer such property in accordance with the law. Okay, all these rights are available to the religious denomination or religious community under Article 26. Next. See, Article 25, it guarantees rights to individuals, while Article 26 guarantees rights to religious denominations or their sections, that is group of individuals. Okay, Article 25 guarantees the rights to individuals, Article 26 guarantees rights of religious denomination or their sections. Next, Article 26 protects collective freedom of religion. Like the rights under Article 25, the rights under Article 26 are also subject to public order, morality, and health, but not subject to other provisions related to fundamental rights. See, earlier under Article 25, the reasonable restrictions were imposed on public order, morality, health, and other provisions also related to fundamental rights. Right? Whereas in Article 26, the reasonable restrictions are included in public order, morality, health, but not on other provisions related to fundamental rights. Under Article 25, they were available to other provisions related to fundamental rights. But under Article 26, they are not included to other provisions related to fundamental rights. Next. Supreme Court held that religious denomination must satisfy 3 conditions. What are they? It should be the collection of individuals who have the system of beliefs which they regard as conducive to their spiritual well-being. See, first one is, it should be a collection of individuals who have the beliefs to their spiritual well-being. Okay, the individuals must have the beliefs on their spiritual well-being. That is one condition. Next is, it should have a common organization. All these individuals should have a common organization. Next, it should be designated by the distinctive name. That organization should have some distinctive name. Okay, these 3 conditions were held by the Supreme Court on religious denomination. Next, Freedom of taxation for promotion of religion. Article 27 lays down that no person shall be compelled to pay any taxes for the promotion or maintenance of any particular religion or religious denomination. Okay, Article 27 says that no person shall be compelled to pay any tax for the promotion or maintenance of their particular religion. Okay, persons need not pay any tax for the promotion of their religion. Next, the state should not spend the public money collected by the way of tax for the promotion or maintenance of any particular region. Okay, state should not spend the public money for the promotion or maintenance of particular religion. Next, this provision prohibits the state from favoring, patronizing, or supporting one religion over the other. Okay. Next, this provision prohibits only the levy of tax and not a fee. This provision prohibits only the levy of tax and not the fee. That means state can collect the fees. It should not levy tax, but it can collect the fee. This is because the purpose of fee is to control the secular administration of religious institutions and not to promote or maintain the religion. Collecting tax is helpful for the control of secular administration of the religious institutions, and it does not promote or maintain religion. Next, thus a fee can be levied on pilgrims to provide them some special service or safety measures. Okay, fee can be levied on pilgrims to provide them some special service or safety measures. Next, freedom from attending the religious instructions. Article 28. No religion instruction shall be provided in any educational institution wholly maintained out of state funds. Okay, Article 28 says that the institutions, educational institutions which are wholly maintained out of state funds are not allowed to provide any religious instructions in that institutions. Okay, however, this provision shall not apply to an educational institution administered by the state but established under any endowment or trust. Okay, this provision is not applicable to the educational institutions administered by the state but established under the endowment or trust requiring imparting of religious instructions in such institutions. Only the educational institutions which are wholly maintained out of state funds, that in educational institutions only religious instructions shall not be provided. Other than that, if the educational institutions are administered by the state but are established under the trust, in this type of educational institutions the religious instructions can be provided. Next, Article 28 distinguishes between 4 types of educational institutions. What are they? Institutions wholly maintained by the state, institutions administered by the state but are established under the endowment or trust, institutions recognized by the state, institutions receiving aid from the state. Okay, under this, religious instructions are not allowed to provide in the educational institutions. Institutions administered by the state but established under any endowment or trust, religious instructions can be provided. Institutions recognized by the state and institutions receiving aid from the state, it is voluntarily done. Okay, there is no compulsion in this, it can be done voluntarily. Okay, with this we are done with right against exploitation and right to freedom of religion. In the next class we'll deal with the remaining articles of fundamental rights. Thank you.